All right, welcome everyone to another EBFA/Naboso educational webinar. This is going to be a hot topic. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about, and anyone who follows my work is familiar with this exercise and why I am such a huge fan of short foot. Now, before we jump into the content, if there are some new people, or I think there might be a few new people to these educational webinars, and you might not be familiar with who I am, I'm going to just very briefly introduce that to you. I am Dr. Splichal. I am a functional podiatrist, a human movement specialist. What that means is that as a foot doctor, I look at feet from a very integrated perspective. I try to get all of my patients doing short foot, get them out of their shoes, their orthotics, unless if they actually need them, but we are still doing foot strengthening, even if you need orthotics. I'm the founder of EBFA Global, which is an education company. All of that content can be seen on the website as well as on YouTube. I have over 250 educational videos on the EBFA YouTube, so definitely check that out. Author of Barefoot Strong, if you have not read that book yet, short, fast, powerful read. If you have not, that's available on the Naboso website, also on Amazon. And then I am the co-founder and CEO of Naboso, which we will reference just a couple of those products today. If you're not following Naboso or myself on social media, do head there and give me a follow. All right. So we are talking about feet, short foot. Short foot is going to be an intrinsic foot muscle exercise. Why is it so powerful? What can you do to make it even more effective? And how can you incorporate that into many of the exercises that you're doing, so you're not thinking about short foot just as like isolated bicep curls? It is an integrated exercise. Now, to set the tone, our foot plays a very important role in balance, stability, the absorption of impact forces, the transfer of impact forces, how you push into a rigid lever, which is how you take a step. So everything based around functional movement, you need to have a strong foot. And when we say strong foot, we're really talking about the deep muscles in our foot, which are called intrinsic. So these intrinsic muscles, fun fact, you have 26 muscles in the bottom of your feet, 26 small muscles in the bottom of your feet. And those muscles, just like every other muscle in your body, needs to be strengthened. I'm going to teach you exactly how. So now, intrinsic strengthening. If you've never heard that term intrinsic, that is going to refer to the muscles in the bottom of the feet, these smaller muscles. I like to think of them kind of like the pelvic floor of your foot, or like the deep abdominal muscles, deep core of your foot, right? Or kind of like the rotator cuff of the shoulder. So we have these deeper muscles that play a very important stabilization role in the area in which they are. So our foot is very important for that. Now, in addition to stabilization, it plays a very important role in supporting our medial arch. So our arch height affects our foot posture, and our foot posture affects the rest of our total body alignment and posture. So if you want to have good posture, you really want to be looking at your feet, your base, your foundation, and what is the posture of your feet? Because everything is built off of that foundation. Okay, and then how is intrinsic strengthening important in that? All right, plays a very important role in foot stability, and this is from the heel all the way to your toes. So toe function, toe position, toe activation, so important to movement, balance, and guess what? What we're talking about today is going to be really focused on your toes. And then finally, strengthening your intrinsics plays a very important role in absorbing or damping impact forces. So when you walk and when you run and you strike the ground and you experience those impact forces, which are perceived as vibration, you strike the ground, vibration enters your body, you absorb that vibration by contracting these small muscles in the bottom of the foot. So all of this is very important, and why I make such an argument on why we need to strengthen our feet. Let's go to short foot. That's why you guys are here, right? So short foot is an exercise that was originally introduced by Dr. Janda. Dr. Vladimir Janda was a Czech physiatrist. He was referred to as the father of sensory motor training. He was actually someone who greatly influenced my personal career, which is why naboso is a Czech word. It is homage to Dr. Janda, who was Czech. So it's a very important connection to me personally. He's the one who introduced lower cross syndrome and upper cross syndrome. These are just postural imbalances that you can see in individuals. And then he was very curious about feet, balance, proprioception. The photo to the lower left is actually showing what are kind of Dr. Janda sandals, which has actually been developed into a product that's called APOS therapy, APOS. It's actually an Israeli company, and they use shoes kind of like this to stimulate the proprioceptors in the ankle and in the knee. A lot of the research is around the knee joint and reducing knee osteoarthritis symptoms. So that may be something that you want to check out. Again, APOS therapy. Now, when you think about short foot, and if you learned about short foot from a video that Dr. Janda posted, or someone who teaches short foot very much like Dr. Janda, the way that it is often described is that you are shortening your foot. So you are standing and then you are retracting your foot back. And I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so that you can see my foot, because this is important to differentiate the different ways that you can do short foot. So if you can see my foot here, actually, let me go with a line. So I'm here on a line. Okay. Right here. And when you do short foot, do you see how my foot is pulling away from the line? So that's the way that Dr. Janda and people who follow his work and exactly how he taught it will teach short foot, that it is this retracting or pulling of the metatarsal heads posterior. Now, I'm going to go into why I actually teach it different, but that's important to understand. The way that Dr. Janda taught it was this way, this pulling in. So if you do that now, that is great. I'm going to show you another way that you can kind of extend the power of short foot exercise. Okay, so this doming. Now, when you look at any of the research related to short foot, if you went to Google Scholar and you searched short foot and like what muscles is it activating, everything is going to go around the abductor hallucis, abductor hallucis, which you can see here. I'm going to go to the next slide, which is here. Okay, so it runs along your arch. I'll show you on my foot. It's right here. Right here, okay? That abductor hallucis is what people will follow around short foot. So when I do short foot and I retract and I do it the way that Dr. Janda taught, and then as well, I'm getting an activation of the abductor hallucis, which runs along the medial arch. Why this is important is that your abductor hallucis is by far one of the most important intrinsic muscles in the human foot. Again, the abductor hallucis is by far one of the most important intrinsic muscles in the human foot. And this is why. There are four main functions to your abductor hallucis. First, it abducts your hallux, which means it prevents the formation of a bunion. So the action of the abductor hallucis is to keep your toe this way, which is preventing the bunion, okay? It lifts your navicular bone. So it runs underneath your navicular. I'll show you exactly where this is. It runs underneath your navicular and it lifts it like a hammock. That is very important. Also, because it originates in the back of your heel, when you tighten the muscle, because it originates on the inside of the heel, it's going to tilt you into inversion. Again, I'll show you what this is, so just ride with me. When you invert the heel, you lift the arch. Super, super important. And then number 4, it connects your feet to your core, or it connects your foundation to your center of gravity. Okay, so here we go. Time to go over this again for you guys. So you can see my feet here. Okay, here's my foot. Here's your abductor hallucis. This way, its action is to pull your toe this way. That prevents a bunion. Bunion this way, pulls it this way. Second action, in the foot, there's a bone right here called your navicular. That is the highest point of your arch. The action of your abductor hallucis is to lift it. Okay, so it lifts your medial arch by that bone. Third function is because it originates right here. This is where your abductor hallucis originates on the inside of the heel. When I contract it, it's going to make my heel go like this. It tilts my heel in. When you tilt the heel in, which is called inversion, you lift the arch. And then finally, when I do short foot, I activate my pelvic floor, which we will be going into. Okay, so that is a lot of powerful function that we are getting out of the abductor hallucis, right? So if we think of this just as like doing crunches or doing a bicep curl, so I'm just thinking really, really local. Okay, I get this benefit to the foot intrinsic, namely the abductor hallucis. Why is that important? Well, this is the function of your abductor hallucis. Bam, great, I love it. Okay. So now, if you want to see a little bit of research of how effective this exercise is at strengthening your foot muscles, namely the abductor hallucis, here is a research study as an example. This is a 2011 study, and what it was doing is it was essentially comparing short foot to a towel crunch. A toe curl is a towel crunch, right? So if you've ever heard of that exercise and you're like, oh, my physical therapist told me to do towel crunches. Okay, now we're looking at the research and we're saying, should I be doing short foot or should I be doing towel crunches? Well, according to the research, this is showing that the more useful exercise for activating the abductor hallucis and supporting the arch of your foot is short foot. So the way that I interpret that is to be stop doing your towel crunches because you're not getting the same benefit as short foot. Also, there is an ideal position that we want the human toes to be during functional movement, and that is long, straight, and flat. So I do not want any of this if that is not the position that I want our toes in. Boom. Long, straight, and flat. Okay, so I'm not a fan of doing towel crunches. So that's one research study to support this for you. Here's another research study. So this is looking at orthotics. So let's say you have overpronation in a flat foot. This is going to look at orthotics and short foot as a way to strengthen the foot, specifically the abductor hallucis. Okay, so this is looking at strengthening the foot intrinsics. So here I'll get this. So it's comparing foot orthotics and short foot or foot orthotics alone. And they're looking at the hypertrophy of the abductor hallucis. So do you actually get like growth of that muscle? And then do you get strength in another intrinsic, which is called the flexor hallucis, in people with flat feet? So we go through this all the way to the bottom here. And what they see is that this study demonstrates that foot orthotics combined with short foot exercise is more effective at increasing the abductor hallucis strength and hypertrophy compared to orthotics alone. Now, what's interesting is there's other research studies that show chronic use of orthotics, arch supports, supportive shoes can actually atrophy atrophy your intrinsic muscles. So when I give a patient an orthotic, because maybe they need it, I am always giving them foot strengthening, short foot at the same time. It is something that I want them to do as a lifestyle. Just like I want everybody to release their feet every day, I want everybody activating and strengthening their feet just for a few minutes every day. Okay, so I love this study kind of demonstrating that combination. Here's one more study looking at abductor hallucis and its effect on the arch. Okay, so this is really demonstrating how I had said the function of your abductor hallucis is to lift the navicular, which is your arch. This is just a cadaver study. And don't worry about reading this. I'm going to read it for you. Okay. And what they saw is this is looking at cadavers, and they found the abductor hallucis muscle. And then when they engage this muscle, when they engage it and create a contraction in this muscle, what they saw is that they were getting a lift of this arch. So the abductor hallucis muscle acts as a dynamic elevator of the arch. Understanding the mechanism of that muscle can change the way that we look at and think about treating flat foot, post-tib tendinitis, bunions, and different types of neuropathies. So that is huge, right? It's just further supporting that we need to go after the abductor hallucis to strengthen the foot. Bam. Good. Got it. Mic drop. Okay. Now here's the thing. This is where I teach short foot different. Okay, I don't want a patient to just do short foot in the way that I showed you that Dr. Janda taught it, which is thinking of short foot like a crunch or like a bicep curl, or you're sitting on the gym and you're doing knee extensions on a machine. That's not the way that I like to train the foot. I train the foot in a very integrated way. Short foot, to me, is an activation exercise that connects your feet to your core. It primes your postural system, your fascial slings. It prepares an athlete or an individual for moving in gravity. It is critical to how I prepare someone for posture, balance, and movement, okay? It is also, when you understand it, an activation that you should be incorporating into every exercise you do. So if you are doing back squats, kettlebell swings, you should be doing short foot during each of those repetitions, because it is your foundation to stability. Okay, that's the way I want you to think about this. Is short foot is an integration exercise. Here we go. This is how it's an integrated exercise. Fascially, your feet are myofascially connected to your deep core, pelvic floor, your diaphragm, and it actually runs all the way up to your tongue. So when you do short foot, you want to be thinking about, you want to be cueing, you want to be doing this in a very specific way that your foot activation is coordinated with your breath, is coordinated with the rhythm of your deep core pelvic floor, right? So these fascia lines are very important to how you want to be stabilizing or thinking about stabilization slings in the body. So this is integrated. What that means is that every time I teach short foot, I am cueing the breath, and I'm going to teach you how to do this. Okay. Now, this connection goes even further, because I know you guys want some of that heavy anatomy. So here you go. All right. So let's look here real quick. I'm just going to go back one because I want to dive into these muscles. So right here, FHL, FDL, flexor hallucis longus, flexor digitorum longus. Your FHL, so these are deep muscles, and it's going to insert onto the tip of your toe, the bottom tip of your toe. Flexor digitorum longus inserts onto the bottom tips of your little toes. The action of these muscles, the action of your long flexors, is that they actually create an anchoring response into the ground. So when I push off to take a step, I need something pulling me down while my energy goes forward. Okay, that's very, very important to understand. And then your posterior tibialis is going to be another muscle. I'm going to show you these muscles. Here we go, right? I want you to fully embrace and understand this. So your long flexors, bottom of the foot here, flexor hallucis longus, flexor digitorum longus. Here, they push down into the ground. So when I go like this, and I'm about to take a step, I need an action going that way when I go the opposite direction, okay? This is actually in relation to Newton's third law, okay? So remember Newton? So his third law is that we have this opposite action, and that's really what I want you to think about, is if you want to jump high, you have to have a strong force going down at the same time. If you want to accelerate forward fast, you have to have some action going that way, right? In the opposite direction, and that is how we create power, okay? Your posterior tibialis is going to be a muscle in your lower leg, and it inserts, guess where this inserts? So deep muscle inserts here, bam, right on the highest point of your arch, which is your navicular. It inserts onto the bone that the abductor hallucis lifts. That is going to be important to understand, okay? Now, when your posterior tibialis inserts here to the navicular, it's going to fan out, and it has 9 attachments. 9 attachments, okay? This is important. It attaches 9 places, 9 places. All these bones in the bottom of the foot. It's going to insert onto another tendon called your flexor hallucis brevis. But the one that relates to this webinar is going to be that it inserts onto your flexor hallucis brevis. Just remember that. Write that down if you need. Posterior tibialis, which inserts on your arch, fans out and has an attachment on your flexor hallucis brevis. Okay. This is your posterior tibialis, okay, lower muscle, inserting here, fanning out. Perfect. Okay, we're back to here. So here, look at this muscle right here, you guys. Do you see these two bellies right here underneath your big toe? This is your big toe joint. This is right here, okay, right there. Flexor hallucis brevis. So posterior tibialis comes here and it inserts on that muscle. Now, what does this have to do with short foot? And why do I get so excited about this anatomy right here? Look at this. Your abductor hallucis comes up this way, if you can follow my arrow, and it shares a tendon. It becomes one tendon with your flexor hallucis brevis. What this means is that the reason why when you push your toes down, which is what we're going to do, when you push your toes down to do short foot, you get this activation of the flexor hallucis brevis. Well, the flexor hallucis brevis connects to your abductor hallucis. And then what is connecting to your flexor hallucis brevis? Your posterior tibialis, and your posterior tibialis inserts into your pelvic floor, into your diaphragm, and continues up. So do you guys see this spider web of attachment that is happening in the bottom of the foot? Remember that, because when I talk about bunions, you want to understand what I just explained, okay? So we have this blending. So the blending and the merging of muscles and fascia that relates to short foot is that abductor hallucis shares a tendon with flexor hallucis brevis. Posterior tibialis inserts onto flexor hallucis brevis. Posterior tibialis runs into your deep front line and into your pelvic floor. So this is how you start to get these activations, okay? Now, the way that I teach short foot is based off of it, stacking your domes. or this is referred to as stacking your bandhas. If you're familiar with yoga, there's bandhas, which are domes in the body, okay? Your foot, pelvic floor, diaphragm, and pellet need to stack. So I'm going to show you this now. And if you want to stand up and try this with me, please do, you guys. All right, so here we go. So I'm here. If you can see my foot, what is happening? Okay, so now when we do short foot, I'm going to teach you how to do short foot based off of doing the forward lean. So let's stand with our feet shoulder width apart. Okay, well, I'll talk about steadying the base in just a moment. Okay, but I want you to stand nice and tall with your arms by your side. Arms are by your side, nice and tall. I want you to imagine that you're as stiff as a board. So I'm going to show you from here. I'm standing nice and tall, stiff as a board. My feet are shoulder width apart, and I'm going to slightly lean forward. Stay stiff as a board. You see that I slightly leaned forward. Now I'm back center. Lean forward, go center. Do that one more time. Lean forward, and then go center. Every time you lean forward, what did you guys feel? What did you feel in your toes? Did your toes go? They should have, right? So I want you to hold that sensation. The sensation of the toes going down when you do forward lean is short foot. So we are not going to be doing the doming and the retracting and pulling the foot back like Dr. Janda taught. We are going to do the action that we feel in our digits when we do forward lean, which is bam, push your toes into the floor, relax them. Push your toes into the floor, relax them. Push your toes down and relax. Great. Now, if you look at my foot, every time I push my toes down, what happens to my arch? Do you see that my arch is lifting? Okay. So I want you to feel that. I want you to feel that when you push your toes down, your arch lifts. When I push the toes down, I'm activating my abductor hallucis, which is short foot. Now, the reason why I teach this different than Dr. Janda is one, the fascial lines and what we understand about fascia was not around when Dr. Janda was doing this. So he was a little bit ahead of his time. Also, I've worked with many athletes as far as the application of short foot. And when I teach short foot, I need you to quickly jump, right? Can you, bam, engage short foot? Short foot. So if you're running, jumping, landing, box jump, etc., you cannot reflexively, boom, pull the foot in like this. It's not possible. The action of the trigger of short foot stabilization is toes down, okay? All right. So when we push our toes down, we understand that our arch lifts. Now, the way that we stack our domes is going to be pelvic floor. Your pelvic floor is the next dome. And then your diaphragm is the third dome. Okay, so you have your arch, your pelvic floor, your diaphragm. Let's start with our diaphragm, okay? And you guys don't even have to see what my feet are doing or my dome, my arch, my diaphragm, right? Okay, but what we're going to do is, the way I want you to think about this is when we inhale, so your diaphragm is a dome, okay? When we inhale, our diaphragm drops. When we exhale, our diaphragm lifts, okay? And we are trying to stack our domes, which means, if you just think about that, do we want to inhale or exhale when we do short foot? Which one lifts our dome? Well, it's the exhale, right? So what I want you to think about is every time you push your toes down, shh, exhale your breath, okay? Or you could elongate our breath and you could shh. Okay? All right. So that's going to be the first part, is that we are stacking our diaphragm with our foot arch. So I want you to inhale into your belly. Your diaphragm is dropping right now. And then I want you to exhale. Your diaphragm is lifting, so the dome is lifting. Keep exhaling, everyone. And as you exhale, push your toes into the floor, just like that forward lean. Keep exhaling, keep exhaling, keep exhaling. And then good release. Inhale, relax your feet. Your domes are relaxing. Okay. One more time, start to exhale. Your diaphragm is lifting, dome is lifting. Start to push your toes down. Keep exhaling. Keep stacking your domes. And then good release. Inhale, relax the domes. Okay. Your third dome, which is actually in between them, is your pelvic floor. Your pelvic floor dome is an anti-gravity muscle. So when we think about stabilization, let's say we're doing a squat, right? Something like that. When I'm about to push load, so I'm down here and I'm pushing up, I need to engage before I push because I need to be stable, right? Or let's say I'm doing a bicep curl. As I curl the weight, I'm engaging, I need stable here, okay? So your pelvic floor is an anti-gravity muscle, has a component of a lift to it. And the lift of the pelvic floor is going to be associated with stability, okay? So if you think of that, let's just kind of deduct this. Think about your breath. When you do a bicep curl, do you exhale here or exhale here? Do you exhale here or do you exhale here? Well, we exhale on the this and we exhale on the this, okay? So if you are exhaling as you come up, you need to then essentially stack your stability, right? Because you need to be stable here. My core is engaged. Okay, great. I'm going to exhale here. They go together. As you exhale, you lift pelvic floor. I hope that that makes sense. Okay, they do this together. The exhalation with the lift of the pelvic floor is really how we are stacking stability in our trunk. Okay, what that means is that as I push my toes down to lift my arch, I'm going to exhale to lift my diaphragm. I'm going to engage and lift my pelvic floor to lift this dome. Okay. Now, the lifting of the pelvic floor is really based off of the sensation of stopping your pee and stopping your poo. Okay. So if you stay standing with your feet shoulder width apart, I want you to think about the base of your pelvis like this. You have a front and you have a back, okay? The back here is actually more important when it comes to short foot. Your posterior pelvic floor is called your levator ani. And what's going to happen is as you exhale and as you push your toes into the floor, you are going to lift your levator ani. Now, the sensation to engage your levator ani is stopping your poo, okay? So I want you to stand with your feet shoulder width apart, relax your pelvis, relax your body, okay? Shut your eyes if you need to, and I want you to focus on your posterior pelvic floor, just focus on your body. And now I want you to imagine stopping your poo. So you're going to lift, right? There's a little lift, and then we release. A little lift, and then release. A little lift, and then release, okay? So as you lift your levator ani, and imagine stopping your poo, right? You are going to exhale, and then release, relax it. Inhale. Again, exhale. And inhale. I want you to start to push your toes down as you exhale and as you lift your levator ani, okay? So here we go, toes down. And inhale, release your feet, relax your pelvic floor. Exhale, lift. And then release, okay? So you are starting to stack arch dome, pelvic floor dome, diaphragm dome. The last one that we would stack is essentially thinking about our tongue to our palate. Now, this one is a little bit kind of interchanged with the diaphragm, but what I like to do is if you bring your tongue to your palate at the same time as lifting your levator ani and at the same time as pushing your toes down, you can feel a stack. So what I want you to do, we're going to start by first lift your levator ani, boom, stop your poo, hold it, push your toes down, boom, hold it, put your tongue into your palate, boom, hold it, and then release all. Do it again. Levator ani, toes down, tongue to palate, release. Levator ani, toes down, tongue to palate, release. Can you do those 3 areas at the same time? Boom, release. I can't do it and talk to you guys. You have to keep doing it. Lift and release. Lift and release. Lift and release. Good job. Okay. So that is, you are stacking your domes. Okay. Now, one thing that I do want to add here is that when you do that, we are doing about 10% of your maximum strength. So if you are inhaling and exhaling and lifting your arch and lifting your pelvic floor and lifting your diaphragm, right? You're doing it relaxed and then release. Okay. Never maximal contraction unless you are under load. Okay. If you are doing the last one that we did, where I had you levator ani, toes down, tongue to palate, you're just like, hello, and then release. Hello, and release. Hello, and release. That's how I want you to kind of dance into it. Could you say hello and hold it for 5 seconds and then release? Sure, you could do that as well. And then ultimately, you're going to incorporate this into movements. So every time you do a squat, every time you do a bicep curl, as you curl the weight up, I want you to push your toes down, lift your levator ani, curl the weights, and then release back down. Okay? Toes down, levator ani up, I'm bicep curling, and then relax down. So I am stacking. It's a stabilization stack. Okay? Use your breath as the driver to that stability, which is going to be very important. Okay, now that's in an ideal world, but now we got different foot types. We have bunions, we have hammer toes. How does our foot type, our client's foot type, our athlete's foot type, of bunions and imbalances, how does that affect short foot? And then how does that affect your ability to stabilize your feet and your core? Does it? Absolutely. 1000%. Yes, it does. Okay. Now here, this photo on the left is showing a big old bunion. This bunion here, right? This right one here, this is showing a hallux rigidus. So that toe's not moving anywhere. So that action is going to come more from the lesser digits. This bunion on the left, this is why a bunion starts to derail stabilization in the foot, core, hips, glutes, etc. We got to go back to these muscles. Remember, I told you to remember these, okay? Flexor hallucis brevis, abductor hallucis. Please remember these. Let's look over at the pictures. Okay. We got these bones called sesamoids. Your sesamoids sit right here, okay? Those are your sesamoids. They're kind of like your patella, but right here. Your sesamoids are these little bones that sit in the tendon of your flexor hallucis brevis, and then connecting to the inside right here. Follow my arrow, connecting right here. This is called medial. The medial belly of your flexor hallucis brevis is your abductor hallucis. Okay, know it, appreciate it. Okay, technically that's called a conjoint tendon because it becomes one tendon. Here's what happens when you get a bunion. Your sesamoids move. This is so important to understanding bunions. This is so important, and no one's paying attention to this, okay? Is when you have a bunion, part of a bunion, when I look at this on an x-ray with a patient, and this is why with any bunion, I have to look at an x-ray. I can't assess thoroughly a bunion without x-rays. Is you get this shifting, the sesamoids moved over, they got pulled over, which means that if your sesamoids are moving, these muscles are moving, which means this abductor hallucis is being pulled over. Now, why this is important is that if you pull a muscle that originally runs here, and this is where it inserts, and then the sesamoid is like, whoop, we're going here, you moved the muscle all the way over there that we're trying to contract. Imagine how hard that is to contract. What if I moved your pec muscle over here, right? You would not be able to contract the same, right? So this is really important to understand when it comes to bunions and foot stability and short foot, is that anyone with a bunion is going to have a hard time contracting their foot, their intrinsics. You need to use toe spacers, period. You do not need to use Naboso splay. I would love if you use Naboso splay, but I need you to use toe spacers if you are doing foot exercises and you have a bunion. Actually, just in general, you should be using toe spacers. But this is the effect of bunions on your foot, on your core, on your diaphragm, on your glutes. Literally, all of that is going to be affected and start to unravel with a bunion. And the reason, I want you guys to understand, the reason is because those intrinsic muscles, based off of the sesamoid position, are being moved over. Okay, that's really, really important to understand. Now, the second one that gets kind of crazy with the short foot is going to be hammer toes or some sort of contracture. Now, an important part of short foot is activating your toes into the ground. But as soon as I curl my toes in, just like that towel curl exercise, I said, don't do that exercise, right? You start to change the ability to contract the toes into the ground. That's ultimately going to throw off your activation. Don't even get me started on what hammer toes do to balance, right? So if you have hammer toes, I need you to be using toe spacers as well. Bunions, hammer toes, please be using the toe spacers. Head to naboso.com, go to Amazon and get the Naboso splay toe spacers. These are easy to wear in your shoes and when you're doing exercises, okay? So we're using our toe spacers. But what about flat feet? What happens when you have a flat foot? Well, imagine, I want you guys to just do this with me. Here, come stand again. And if you have flat feet, you may be saying, well, yeah, I get it. Okay, so I have a neutral arch right now, and I'm going to pull this off of here because I'm just going to jump into the other. So I'm here. Let me just pretend I have a flat foot. Let me just make my right foot flat. And I'm trying to do short foot, you guys, while pretending to make my foot flat. This is so hard. Boom, stabilize my foot. I got it, right? If you guys at home have a neutral arch, make your foot flat and try to do short foot. It is so hard to get into the foot activation. This is very important to understand. So what do you do? What do you do if your client, your athlete has feet like this and you're trying to do short foot? Well, one, we have to understand how to set our base. This is important. Before I teach short foot, before any exercise that I have patients do, you have to learn to set your base. So when you set your base, your feet are shoulder width apart. You're going to lift your toes, find your foot tripod. So the first, fifth heel, spread those toes nice and wide, place them back down onto the floor. Now that's a good start. That's a good start. But let's say you're still standing like this. I need you to rotate. So let's all do this so that we can appreciate the rotation. Feet are shoulder width apart. Totally collapse into the inside of the foot. Now go to the outside of the foot. Go to the inside, go to the outside. Every time you do that, or you can even just look at my knees. Do you see that my knees and my legs are rotating? Every time I go inside, my legs rotate in. Every time I go outside, my legs rotate out. So if I am collapsing in, to fix this, I have to rotate out. And that rotation out, I'm doing in my hips, okay? So your stable base is built around foot tripod, spread your toes, and externally rotate into your hips. You should feel your glutes when you do that, right? Bam, I just externally rotated my hips to stabilize my foot and to put me in a position so that when I do short foot, I get higher activation. Now, let's say it's hard for your client to hold that. That is actually where these come in. These are the Naboso wedges. So what I would do is say, well, I need to hold the client or you with the wedges in this position. So do I need to use this wedge under the heel, under the inside of my arch to keep me stable so I can do short foot, right? So I'm in a position like this. Now I can find my foot tripod and do it. Maybe I'm gonna put this under my heel here, and it's going to invert it and make me more stable. Okay, so these are really, really good. When you get the wedges, you guys, you get 2 of these. These are 25 degrees. I'll show you that in a second. And 2 of these 10 degrees. So if you even stand at a standing desk or something like that, and you have flat feet, you can put this inside your heel on both of your feet, and then just stand there and do type away, and you have this, okay? But your foot position is really important when you do short foot, because you cannot be unlocked and then still get an optimal foot activation. Foot position, set your base, okay? So here it is again. Step 1, always set your base. Your clients, your athletes, bam. What does that mean? If they can't hold it because of their foot type, or it's just a lot to have a mind connection to the foot and hold that, then use the Naboso wedges, please. I got a discount code for you, okay? So I'll give you that discount code. So here you can see I'm posting, this is called posting. I'm posting my heel into an inverted position, or really a neutral position, so that I can activate short foot and my foot intrinsics easier. Really important, really important. Now, I'm going to give you a few additional ways that you can elevate your experience. Okay, you can elevate your experience. So your short foot experience, that is, right? So here, first one is toe extension, a toe extension short foot. So that is going to use this wedge. This is using the 25-degree wedge, exactly like the photo shows here. Now, when you extend your digits 25 degrees, research has shown that you get increased intrinsic activation. So if I want to kind of fast track this, get a little bit higher, wake it up in my foot, I'm going to extend my digits 25 degrees, push into the wedge, and that is going to give me a more effective release. Now, let's say I have flat feet, right? So I'm going to go here. This is me extending. So now I'm going to push into the wedge, release, push into the wedge, release. I can hold here for 10 seconds, activate, 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 and then release. If I want to do this, and then maybe I have an overpronated foot, then I'm going to take this heel wedge on the inside, kind of like the photo, and then I'm holding this position, right? I do a lot of single leg work, so that's why I'm just showing with the 1 foot. Of course, if you had 2 of these, you could be doing this bilateral as well, okay? This wedge, push into that 25 degrees, really, really good. A bonus on this is that when you extend the toes up like this, you technically also lift the arch. So you create foot stability by extending the digits 25 degrees. I love it, okay? So if you want to elevate your short foot, or you want to get better activation of your short foot, then use the wedges, extend your toes 25 degrees, and that would be an elevated version of short foot, okay? Now, another progression that you can do, I'm going to have to do this with one of the wedges because I'm looking around and I'm like, where is my ball? Is here. This is a ball between the heel exercise. Ball between the heel. Theoretically, you could put anything between the heels. Put your cell phone if you want. Okay. So this one, this is a really, really good exercise. Oh my gosh, I love this exercise, you guys. This is, if the other ones, if short foot is the king of all exercises, then this is the queen of all foot exercises. So I'm just going to use this just as an example. Okay. I have something between my heels, and what I'm doing is I'm spreading my toes, set my base. I'm going to slightly lift my heels, and I'm pushing my toes into the floor. I'm pushing my toes down, driving my heels together. Just doing this is activating the posterior tibialis, which connects to the pelvic floor. If I want to continue the exercise, then I would push my toes down, lift, drive my heels together all the way up. And on the top of this exercise, I'm going to tuck my heels under the ball and then lower myself back down. Toes are spread, slight lift, drive the heels together, up, up, up. Woo, tuck my heels under the ball or under the wedge here, and then lower back down. So shh, and then lower down. Toes down, shh, lower down. Do you see that I have this spiral action? I'll actually show it to you guys from behind. So you can hopefully appreciate that I'm tucking and there's a movement in my heel. So I'm here, boom. Do you see that spiral on top? Boom. That tuck is what you want to make sure you're doing. Shh, shh. Okay. Now the stack of short foot is that you are always pushing the toes down, lifting the pelvic floor, exhaling as you're doing this. So it's always, always integrated. That would be a short foot progression, okay? Really targeting posterior tibialis, which is awesome. Okay, so you guys are looking to elevate your short foot experience. So what I would suggest is if you have bunions and hammer toes, then please get the toe spacers. You really want to be using these to support that alignment when you do short foot. Technically, you should be wearing them in your shoes as well, but at least when you're doing short foot in your exercises, you have that alignment, so you get better foot activation. The way that you're looking at short foot now, I need you to please integrate it. It is not an isolated foot exercise just for building the foot arch and that its goal. It is an integrated fascial foot to core sequencing exercise. I want you to understand or just appreciate the complex fascial connections in the bottom of the foot and why they're so important. And then I want you to understand what happens when we have bunions, hammer toes, flat feet, and how can you create a better position of the foot to get better activation? The wedges are really one of the best ways to do that. So if you use code FW40, you can get 40% off of the wedges. The wedges are $75. This is a ridiculous deal, you guys. 40% off of $75. That is something like, I don't know, 40 some odd dollars for them, which is great. And you get 2 of the 25-degree wedges, 2 of the 10-degree wedges. So definitely check that out. And then follow the rest of Naboso. I want to make sure that I can jump into some questions. If you do have to go, I completely understand. Remember, this is being recorded. So if you want to catch some of those questions, you absolutely can at the end. Okay. Thank you guys so much. Okay. Some of these. So I'm going to be responding to those that relate to short foot. Some people are asking questions that are not necessarily related to the topic of short foot. So I'm just going to screen these out for those. Okay. So any of the bunion questions, I'm going to defer those. A lot of people are asking questions about correcting bunions without surgery. You cannot correct bunions without surgery. Can you pause them or slow the progression? Yes, but you cannot correct bunions without surgery. Plantar fasciitis, this is a really good topic. If someone has plantar fasciitis, be careful with the engagement or the activation that you are using short foot. Do not exceed. You can absolutely give yourself plantar fasciitis from short foot. So you don't want to be over aggressive with that. Okay. So just be really mindful with it. I do have a whole lecture on plantar fasciitis. So definitely check that out. That is on the EBFA YouTube. Helen asked about short foot with heel spurs. Essentially heel spurs is plantar fasciitis. So definitely check out what I just responded. Shoes. So Stan asked about the shoes. The shoes is APOS, APOS, APOS therapy, APOS therapy. So my guideline for when and how often to do short foot, one, I think everyone should do a foot activation every morning before they start their day. So you would do a couple repetitions. I like to progress short foot from 5. So I would do 5 forward leans. So forward lean, inhale, forward lean, exhale. Then I would get into setting my base, and then I would do short foot, inhale, exhale, 5 repetitions. And then I would do short foot and shift onto a single leg stance. Hold for 10 seconds, do the same on the left side, and you do that a couple times. So that's essentially how I think people should be doing short foot in the morning. But then short foot is part of every exercise you do. I was literally just at the gym doing squats. Every squat I did short foot. As I stand and I kind of like wait for my coffee to be brewed, I'm just pushing my toes into the ground, activating my postural system. So to me, short foot becomes as integrated as breathing, as just basic breathing. That's how I look at it. Okay, great question. If you have an extra navicular bone, that's called an accessory bone or accessory navicular. All that means is that you need to be doing short foot and strengthening your foot more than the average person. That's really what that would mean. Okay. Does short foot help build the transverse arch? Your transverse arch is across your foot here. Okay. Yes, it can. So as you build your longitudinal arches, you support the transverse arch. So yes, great question as far as that. Okay. If you have a high arch, just don't be too aggressive in the activation, but do high arches, which are typically associated with being rigid, still need to strengthen the feet in short foot. 1000% yes. And the reason is because the purpose of short foot is not just to build an arch, it is to integrate your foot with your core and your diaphragm. And high arches need to do that as well. Okay, so that's how I want you to think about it. Don't be too aggressive with it, but meaning don't go 100 maximal contraction. Try to say hello and breathe into it. That would be the short foot. Okay. Cheryl asks, are there any shoes that would give you the 25-degree extension? Fortunately, none that I know of. There is something that is called a Met bar that you can look at. Also stay tuned because we might play around with some of that stuff at Naboso. Okay. What do you think of the reverse movement of the toe crunches? Something like a towel out. Again, I don't see, I wouldn't do it. The purpose of your digits is to stay long, straight, and flat and anchor so that you can become a lever and you can balance on one foot and you can isometrically contract your foot. So to towel curl in, to push the towel out, to do toe yoga, honestly, I don't see a benefit of any of those exercises. And this is purely based off of working with patients for so many years. Patients, for the most part, are non-compliant, which means they don't like doing it. It's like doing rotator cuff exercise. You're just like, man, this sucks, right? People don't like to do it. So the more that you can weave it into something that is achievable, that's the way that I like to do foot exercises. Doesn't mean that you can't do it. Doesn't mean that you're going to hurt them. I just want you to think of, if you had to choose only one exercise, go with one that would have the highest ROI for you, okay? Can you use the wedges for squat blocks and lunges and things like that? 100% yes. So there is more benefit to the wedges than just anything that relates to short foot. Absolutely. Okay. Does the short foot exercise need modifying for a bunion near the little toe? No, it doesn't. That's a Taylor's bunion. I would still do the toe spacers, but that would be a Taylor's bunion. Does not have an effect on the foot arch or the activation of the abductor hallucis. Okay. Do these exercises make hammer toes worse if they are gripping? That is why I would suggest toe spacers or the splay when you do short foot, because you can definitely get over aggressive in your digits and not create hammer toes, but make a hammer toe when you do short foot. So then if I start to see someone's toes contracting as they short foot, pop them in some toe spacers. Okay. Perfect. Excellent. Do you prioritize strength over endurance with short foot? Great question. To me, it is an activation which is then integrated into other exercises. So if I'm doing, like, just as an example, if I'm doing kettlebell swings, essentially what makes it successful in a kettlebell swing is that I need to do short foot as I lift the bell. So I need to be able to do it quickly and in a strong way. If I am doing box jumps and as I land on the box jump, I want to engage my foot, I have to train rapid contraction of short foot. That is integrated still. If I am standing on one leg and balancing for 10 seconds, theoretically, I'm doing short foot for the 10 seconds. So that would be endurance. I don't see a purpose of holding short foot for like a minute, because where would that transfer, right? So we always want to ask ourselves, what is the purpose of short foot doing dynamic movement? It's to rapidly contract and stabilize as you go into mid stance, to rapidly stabilize as you go into the propulsive phase, to contract as you absorb vibration. So it's really based off of the ability to rapidly, quickly contract in an integrated way, versus I can hold short foot for a minute, almost like planking, right? To plank for like a minute or 3 minutes, I don't understand how that transfers to dynamic movement, like swinging a pickleball racket or paddle, right? So we want to kind of think like that. Okay. Good. I'm going to do a couple more questions. Stephanie says, I'm a pelvic floor therapist, and this makes so much sense. I'm very glad. I teach is very similar to you about the dome, so that's awesome. How long should we use the splay at night? So you can wear them in your shoes. You could wear them all day. It's based off of the tolerance of the individual. Okay. For incorporating short foot, do you stack your pelvis as well with the exercises, regardless of the intensity or load? I do. I try to get a stack, if I can, as much as I can, between foot, pelvic floor, diaphragm. Okay. Does a weak, tight posterior tibialis come from a weak foot? Typically, yes. Do you pair breath with the forward lean? Yes. So every time you lean forward on that forward lean, you would exhale, inhale, back vertical, exhale, back vertical. Okay. You guys have such great questions. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to go quickly because people are like, oh, I gotta go. Sorry, you guys. If you're landing from a jump, great question, Pam. If you jump and land, as you land, I would do short foot. That's what I'm going to show you as the last one. Okay, here's your finale, you guys. Make sure you check out all of the YouTube, the discount, the splay, all of this awesome stuff. Thank you guys so much. I love this topic, so you can tell. Okay, so I'm here, the way that I progress this, so I'll just show you a jump. So I'm here, right? And I have short foot on this leg. And then this is a progression that I normally teach in my workshops, is that I'll start by kind of doing this. So shh, shh. I have short foot on this leg. Exhale back, exhale back, exhale back. So I'm isometrically holding that, right? So someone asked about endurance. I'm isometrically holding this. Woo, okay, that's good. The next progression, I would do it on this side. Then I go back to this side. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up, back, little hop, 1, 2. And as soon as my foot lands, 1, 2, up, back, here, short foot. Okay, up, back, here, short foot. Up, back, land, short foot. Okay, so that's how I'm doing it in a jump. Now a jump, if I'm doing something like this, right? So I'm going up, back, little hop, back, up, back, little hop. Okay, so that's where short foot is. So if I'm bounding, right, let's say I'm working with athletes, I'm going to go right, as soon as my foot contacts. So that's theoretically how you could do it in a jump. Woo, I'm out of breath. Okay. All right, you guys, I know that there's more questions. Please email those. Please email any questions. There were so many questions that I couldn't get to, bunion stuff and all of this. Definitely stay tuned for more webinars coming up. Thank you so much. I always appreciate your support and you entertaining my passion for feet and how feet are so integrated to movement. So stay tuned for the next one. Thank you so much. Have an amazing night or day, depending where in the world you are. Take care and I'll see you soon.